Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 29.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to conquer limiting beliefs and transform your world with your gifting and purpose. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hey friends, how are you? Back for another episode. So happy to have you here. Last week we talked about the fear factor in your life, and I want to build on that a little bit today and talk about fake news, because I think the two are very related. And considering what's going on in the news every single day right now as we speak on this particular day, which is March 9th, 2020, there's a lot of fear mongering going on the news. And we've come up with this saying, this label that is kind of universal now, called fake news. And it doesn't belong to one political party anymore, and this is not a political podcast. But I can tell you that that saying is extremely useful when we start to look at our limiting beliefs, when we start to break down what it is that's going on that's causing toxic mindsets and all the things that I espouse and teach about, that understanding the source of fake news in our life, which is often tied to fear, is very, very powerful. So if you have read my book, and if you haven't, go do that. Get it on Amazon. It's called Master Your Mindset, The Master's Way. 8 chapters, foundational truths to understand how mindset works, to help you locate your limiting beliefs, to help you heal those limiting beliefs, and have you begin to walk into purpose and understand purpose, and assist you in understanding what purpose looks like in your life, what influence looks like, and then finally dealing with both money and failure the right way. So I recommend you get the book, of course, but if you've got it and you've read it, you know that in the chapter on changing your mindset, I have a 14-step process to help you do that, to help you deal with toxic beliefs and limiting beliefs. And the second step, after you've gone through identifying where you are, step 1, step 2 is who told you that. This is identifying the source of your limiting belief, which is rooted in fear. So really the source of your fear. Who told you that? Why is that important? Well, it's amazing when we're able to really discover the source of something that we've believed for a long time, or the source of something negative that's in our life. It can really change it for us, because when we start to look at it and say, wow, that's coming from as an example, some little kid in middle school who taunted me and teased me, and I believed something negative about myself my entire life. But when I think about the source of it, it's actually started there in middle school. That's one example. It really takes some of the oomph out of that limiting belief when you realize that it was formed at a time when you had really no filter, and that it was done so by another kid who was just as immature as you were, and nobody really knew what they were doing or saying, but you took in that limiting belief and it sort of haunted you your whole life, and it's truly fake news in your life. So when I say who told you that, you don't always know the source of a limiting belief, the source of a toxic mindset, but it's worth trying to figure it out if you can. It's worth identifying it if you think that's possible, from the standpoint of, and for the purpose of, taking the power out of that limiting belief by saying, wait a minute, that started out of this situation with this person. It really didn't mean anything. How is it I've allowed it to be so powerful in my life? It's really fake news. It's usually rooted in a lie, rooted in fear, and actually not rooted in truth. And once we can identify that, it just takes away the power of that limiting belief. So it's an important part of our process of trying to heal from and turn around our toxic thoughts and limiting beliefs. Here's what I say in the book. Let me quote it. Okay, this is page 125. The who, or the source of the lie you have believed, may be a person or an event. It may have happened in your childhood or more recently. It probably has been reinforced in different ways throughout experiences in your life. You may not remember the source or the situation, but I have found that most people can point to something as the root. Identifying the source may help you understand why you allowed the limiting belief to become truth in your life, and should empower you to be able to challenge the lie and replace it with the right mindset. Often, when we are able to see the event or the person from a place of maturity and with the distance of time, we can see how we reacted in a way that set us up for a negative stronghold in our mind. Now, I go on to say, don't get stuck on this step, because if you can't identify the source of a limiting belief or the source of a fear or the source of a lie that you've managed to believe in your life, if you cannot find the root of it, don't go on a hunt that never ends. At some point, you just accept the fact that maybe you don't know the who, the what, the where. But, the truth is, it doesn't matter if you develop that knowledge or not. But knowing that you definitely have believed something that I would term fake news, knowing that you have embraced a lie that came from somewhere that maybe you know, maybe you don't, is enough to tell you that you should question who you believe in the future. I mean, that's really the point of this step. It's not only to uncover who told you that, who told you a lie, who got you to believe something that limited you, who got you to allow something to drop into your subconscious that would set up a negative stronghold, but also as a means of being healthy moving forward and saying, who told you that, when you start to hear something come out of your mouth that's negative, when you know that you're believing a toxic idea or holding on to a toxic thought, is to question yourself and say, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Who said that? Who told me that? And it's funny because now in this whole environment we have of 24/7 news and 24/7 information and social media, now we recognize the danger of fake news. Now we recognize it so much so that even in something like Facebook, they have added labels to sources of information, so that if you want to know who wrote that article, is it coming from a trusted publisher? Has it been vetted? There are different things that they're doing as a content provider, whether you agree with them or not, to try to deliver to you what would be considered an honest source of information that doesn't come from somebody who's twisting it. Now, that doesn't mean that certain news outlets don't, get away with maybe fabricating some information or whatever, but there's been this attempt to try to shut down this misinformation out there that comes from various random sources, so that you have the ability to say, hey, who wrote this? Who's saying this? And not just swipe past it, but to investigate it before you believe it. When you think about something like your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed, you just go swiping right through these stories, and you'll see a headline. Do you question the headline or do you accept the headline? And I think the point nowadays is you better make sure that you question it, and that hopefully there are tools to help you understand whether or not that resource, that source is trustworthy, with whatever measure we can add to that, so that you don't just take in information and believe it as truth without questioning it. So we are in the age of fake news. And you know what? That means it's really hard to find the truth. That means that it's really hard to find the truth about yourself. It means that we are susceptible to believing lies. And, sometimes they just fit the way we see the world. They just fit our mindset, good or bad. You may have developed a toxic mindset already. You may think negative things about yourself. And if someone tells you or shows you something additionally negative, it's going to fit right into your mindset. It's going to fit right into your worldview about yourself. So you're just that much more willing to accept it without even questioning it. And if it doesn't fit in with your mindset, you have a tendency to push it away, unless you're challenging yourself, right? Unless you're challenging yourself to clean up the old toxic mindsets and try to come up with a mindset that's more positive, life-affirming, something that brings you forward in life. And then you have to reconstruct all of the things that you believe. So you have to know who told you that. The truth is becoming harder to find. Not just the truth about what's going on in this world, in politics, in government, in school, whatever. It's not just difficult to find that kind of truth. I mean, there's so much gossip out there that isn't based in truth, but it's also hard to find the truth about yourself. It just is. It's becoming harder and harder, but at the same time, more critical that we don't believe lies about ourselves. It's becoming more critical to our future and our ability to walk in our purpose, that we tell ourselves the truth. And if we're always listening to other people and always engaging in a culture that is fake, that is based on fake metrics, that is based on fake images, then we have a harder time finding truth. And trust me, when you can't find truth, then you become confused. When you can't find truth, then you no longer have a metric to say, hey, what I'm reading here or what I'm hearing here, let me balance that against the truth that I know. And let me see then if that plays out correctly. And you know what? In a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times you need to set it aside. But what we do instead of doing that, we just allow that information and that fake news and those lies to just get into our brain and to just kind of lollygag in there and just hang around until it forms a limiting belief. I mean, if it hangs around long enough, that negative thought, that toxic mindset will then eventually go into your subconscious to form a limiting belief that's going to make it that much harder than now to overcome certain things in your life. And now you've got to go on a search for, wait, where is the source of that? So we have every single day in front of us, we have the source of fake news and the source of real news, meaning we can decide to seek out the truth about others and about ourselves, or we can decide to just take in what's around us. I mean, there's enough information for us to just binge on 24/7, every minute, every second, if we choose to do so. But what is the quality of that information? What is the truth of it? How much of it is lies? How much of it is spin? How much of it is meant to bring you down? How much of it is meant to put you in fear? How much of it is meant to stop you? And then what about the stuff that is supposed to build you up and the stuff that allows you to seek out truth about yourself? Which path are you taking? Because the harder path is the one of truth. That's much harder. That's the one where you have to challenge everything and say, wait a minute, does this fit my construct? Does this fit my worldview that I've worked so hard, my positive worldview to develop? It's harder work. It's easier just to sit there, take in all the information, just be a consumer of information and images and never question it, and just believe whatever you read, whatever you hear. Well, then you're setting yourself up in your personal life to do that with everything around you as well. Is that you aren't developing that muscle to challenge what you're hearing, to challenge what you're seeing, to say, wow, wait a minute, that makes me feel like fear. I feel fear when I read that, or I feel faith when I read that. Which direction do I want to go? And if it's fear, why, like we talked about last week, if it's fear, I'm feeling fear when I hear that or read that, is that something I can act on, or is it just because it's a lie and I need to move on? So, you can make those decisions every day, all the time. But if you're not willing to do that work and you just sit there and you accept whatever fake news comes your way, then you are basically a lamb to the slaughter. Because those thoughts hanging around in your mind and those thoughts that you allow anyone to put in there really have the same ability as good thoughts to stay forever. And if you're not careful, and if you're not being a good steward of your mind, and you're not being that guard at the door, then any amount of fake news can enter constantly. And then, think about it. What are you spitting out then? Then what's coming out of your mouth? The thoughts you have in your head. So the words that you say are now going to be rooted in lies. The words that you say will be rooted in fear, because the fear is behind all this information that wasn't truth and you weren't seeking the truth. So it's all intertwined, which is why I wanted to talk about fake news today, or the concept of it. I wanted to bring you back to understanding that who told you that is a very valuable question to ask, that you should challenge any mindset that's taking up shop in your subconscious, that you should challenge whatever comes into your conscious mind before it decides to stay and to take root, that you should always be seeking truth every day. And you know what? You've been given an amazing brain and an ability to do that. You don't just have to allow anything that is said to you, anything you read, or anything you see to hang around in your mind as long as it wants to, and just not be able to control those thoughts and not be able to say no to the lies. It's your choice. So I want you to think about that in the most practical way as it relates to literally watching the news and literally scrolling through social media and all of that. And I also want you to think about it in a more spiritual way in terms of what you're allowing to go into your subconscious and what you are believing about yourself. Because I'll tell you what, the world is going to be much more excited and ready to tell you negative things. The world really is, if it tells you positive things about yourself, it's just doing that for a time until it can find a way to make you fall from your 15 minutes of positivity, right? The world is really not set up to support you in a positive mindset. The world is all too ready to give you the toxic stuff. So it's up to you to take the reins of that and you to decide that you're not going to embrace those negative beliefs and that you're going to search for the truth about yourself. It's an active thing that you have to do. It's being active and not passive. And we have to do it our whole lives. We have to do it all the time, but we get better and better at it. And what's easier for us to spot a lie as it's coming at us if we work this process and that we hold ourselves to the standard, that we will question the things that come at us, and we will make sure that the only things we allow in to the best of our ability are rooted in truth. So this week, as you think about all the things you're hearing and all the things you're seeing, whether it has something specifically to do with you or just with your world or your environment, make a choice. Make a choice to decipher who told you that. Is it fake? Is it true? Do I want to believe it? Do I choose to believe it? And have a guard at your mind, have a guard at your subconscious. You allow in those things that you believe are rooted in truth and faith, not things that are rooted in lies and fear. And if you don't know for sure, check your emotions. Because if you're going to react from an emotion of love and faith, then it's more likely that what you're hearing is truth. But when you're reacting from an emotion of fear, then you know that most likely what you're hearing is based in fake news in some way, and you need to counter it. So that is the scourge of fake news in our world, and it's not going away, guys. So develop this habit, get good at it, so that you don't have to be bogged down by all the lies that the world would have you believe about yourself. And if you need to work on this and you need help with this, come to the Mindset Reset on March 28th. There are only a couple of seats left, but I really would love to have you there. Let me tell you what, the exercises we are going to do are life-changing, and they will give you the tools that you need to identify the lies in your life and to heal from some of this toxic stuff that you've allowed in. It's really such an amazing day. I'm very excited to just go through it myself with the team that's there and with the group that's there. I just love it. I cannot wait. It's super exciting. If you have questions about it, reach out to me. The registration is going to be closing before you know it, and that's it. And so don't miss it. It's definitely worth your time and your investment. Give me a call or send me an email if you want to talk about it further. Guys, have a great week. Stay away from fake news and only tell yourself the truth. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, if you want to be part of a free online community of like-minded individuals for support, resources, and inspiration as you conquer your limiting beliefs and pursue your purpose, go to elizabethnader.com/community. That's elizabethnader.com/community, or search for Master Your Mindset Academy private group on Facebook. Looking forward to seeing you online.